As artificial intelligence starts to reshape, well, everything, what does that actually mean for our jobs, for our society, and maybe even for our own sense of purpose? That is the huge question we are tackling today.
So let's just dive right in with a pretty jarring prediction from technology author Martin Ford. He's convinced we are right on the edge of this massive societal disruption. And look, he's not talking about some far-off science fiction future. He sees this as the inevitable result of the tech we are literally building as we speak.
But this is not a settled deal. It is a really fierce debate, and we're going to explore it through two totally competing visions. So on one side, you've got Martin Ford, our pessimist, who sees this as a fundamental, like a total break from the past. And on the other side, you have economist Betsy Stevenson, our optimist, who believes we're just seeing a painful but ultimately positive historical pattern repeating itself.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll look at their conflicting visions for the future. Then we're going to dig into the really big question, is this time actually different? After that, we'll explore the economic fallout, check out some potential solutions, and then, finally, we get to the big one. How do we find meaning if it's not through our jobs?
Okay, so what are these two futures we're talking about? Well, one is the story of incredible progress and brand new opportunities. The other? Well, it's a story of widespread displacement and a real crisis of purpose. So the optimist, Betsy Stevenson, she tells us to look at history. Check out this chart. A little over a century ago, nearly half, 41%, of the entire U.S. workforce was in agriculture. And today, it's less than 2%. Technology completely changed the game, but we adapted, right? We created totally new jobs and entire new industries. Stevenson's argument is that this is just the next chapter in that exact same story.
But Martin Ford says, hold on, not so fast. He argues this time is fundamentally different. He's predicting that AI and robotics could eventually displace up to half, 50% of the entire workforce. We're not talking about just one sector like agriculture, but jobs across the whole economy. A number like that would completely rewrite society as we know it.
And this brings us right to the absolute core of the debate. What makes AI different from, say, the steam engine or the internet? Is it just another tool in the toolbox, or is it something new, something else entirely?
This slide just perfectly illustrates Martin Ford's central point. Look over on the left. Past technologies like the steam engine, they automated muscle power. They replaced our brawn. And every single time, we adapted by moving into jobs that required our brains. But now look at the right. AI is automating cognitive ability. It's replacing our brains, the one thing that has always been our ace in the hole, our competitive advantage.
And what's really fascinating is that even the optimist, Betsy Stevenson, she totally acknowledges this profound shift. As she puts it, our individual intelligence is just going to be swamped by machines with 300 IQ points. Her point is that our cognitive edge, the thing we've always relied on to stay ahead, well, it's shrinking, and it's shrinking fast.
Okay, so how does all this actually play out in the economy? Because the consequences aren't just about whether you have a job or you don't. The shockwaves are probably going to be felt long before we ever see mass unemployment.
So Betsy Stevenson, she predicts that the first big shock won't be mass layoffs, but falling wages. Think about it. For a company to replace a human with an AI, the AI doesn't just have to be able to do the job, it has to be cheaper. So a lot of people might actually keep their jobs, but only by taking less pay just to compete with the machine.
In this creates a huge economic paradox, something both our experts are really worried about. If AI makes a very small number of people incredibly rich, but wages are falling for everybody else, well, who's going to buy all the products and services these new companies are creating? You need consumers with money in their pockets, and without them, the entire AI-powered economy could just stall out.
A disruption this big is probably way too big for the market to solve on its own. It kind of forces us to go back to the drawing board and rethink the fundamental social contract between all of us, citizens, work, and the government.
So two really big ideas have come to the forefront to deal with this. The first is universal basic income, or UBI, which Martin Ford champions. It's basically a guaranteed income from the government, no strings attached, to give everyone a financial floor. The second is Betsy Stevenson's idea of a digital dividend. The payment is similar, but the framing is totally different. It's not a handout, it's a payment you've earned. It's your rightful share of all the wealth that gets created from our collective data.
Stevenson also suggests a more immediate policy change. As you can see here, our tax system today often encourages companies to invest in machines over people. Her solution? Flip the incentives. It's pretty simple. Tax human labor less and tax capital, things like robots and AI, more.
Just create a level playing field so that humans aren't starting at a disadvantage. So this brings us to the final and, maybe the most important question of all. If work is no longer the center of most people's lives, what takes its place? And this is where we move beyond the economics and get right to the heart of what it means to live a fulfilling human life.
To help us think about this, we can actually look at this really powerful concept from Japan called ikigai. It translates roughly to your reason for being, the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. And when researchers have actually studied where people find this, the results are pretty fascinating.
And what is so fascinating, when you look at this list, is that for most people, ikigai has very little to do with their paid job. The strongest sources of purpose are things like getting involved in your community, volunteering, hobbies, and just strong social connections. And these are the exact kinds of things a future with less mandatory work could give us more time for, but only if we build a society that actually values them.
And on this point, both of our experts are in complete agreement. As Martin Ford puts it, jobs give us more than just an income. They provide dignity and self-worth. So if the traditional job starts to disappear for a lot of people, we can't just replace the paycheck. We have to be intentional about building new pillars where people can find meaning and identity.
And that leaves us with this ultimate question. The greatest challenge of AI isn't really technical, it's human. It's not about programming the machines, it's about reprogramming our own ideas of what a meaningful life even looks like. The technology is forcing the question on us, but the answer, that has to come from us.